just so we have the information to share out to those folks who were unable to attend today. If you do have questions as we move forward during the meeting, please jot them down in the chat and we'll do our best to respond. So at this time, I would like to pass the floor over to our MP, Mr. Dan Mazur, for an update and greetings.
Thanks, Charlene, and good morning, everyone. This is good. This is our new reality, I guess. After 1 year of COVID, this is actually working out really well. So yeah, I'm still actually. This is my home now. Where my new office is at home. I'm not in Ottawa this week, and haven't been since for about a month now. So, as far as an update and what's all going on, we have talked to the minister's office, and I did speak to her, basically expressing the importance of this parkland project and wanting to get it moved forward and putting it as a priority across Canada. We haven't really heard anything back from that. I did also, we were advised that they want to get money moving out quickly, but again, nothing back on that as well. So again, maybe some more talk than action, but I mean, I guess the commitment was there, and we're trying to push it forward as hard as possible in Ottawa. As far as the budget yesterday, that was the latest update. We heard about the Universal Broadband Fund, or funding for broadband in general. There was a $1 billion commitment to that, to the fund, or on broadband funding. And I guess I'll just make sure that it does go to rural Canada, and it supports projects like the Parkland project. So that's about all I got for updates on this project, and wishing you a very good and safe seeding season, that's for sure.
Thank you. I would just like to point out something for folks, if I can share my screen here for a minute. So I'll share this link out in the chat, but this is the federal site where we're eagerly jumping on a daily basis just to see if new projects have been selected. So under this tab of Find a Selected Project, you can see a number of provinces and territories who have been awarded projects already. And once you scroll into the list, it'll provide a bit of a breakdown as to those projects that have been funded and who the ISP or who the provider is that's going to be working on the project, and the number of households to be served, and the funding award, of course. So I just urge everyone to take a look at this link because it's pretty interesting to see the scope of national projects that are happening. And as I said, we're eagerly awaiting those Manitoba announcements, but it's a bit concerning to see some of the big guys here, like Bell and TELUS, receiving significant awards, and we want to see similar equities in Manitoba as far as project announcements, and to our partners in this case with RioNet and Clear Sky. I know we have Jeff Kunzelman, Jared Roback from RioNet, Bill Murdoch from Clear Sky Connections, and I think one of his colleagues as well. Did anyone want to say a few words while I figure out how to unshare my screen here, just relating to your own company's activities to date and how you're positioning for the next little while?
I can speak a little bit about RioNet and kind of how this project is impacting us currently in this 2021. So normally this time of year, we are planning what projects we're going to be doing for the coming year, or we would already have those planned because it's a short season in Manitoba. We have a short season to build and construct a lot of the pieces that we need to do. Fiber in the ground, towers, we have a short season for that. So we're kind of in limbo right now. We're waiting on an outcome from Rapid Response, Universal Broadband Fund. We're a little bit paralyzed, if you will, as far as where do we expand, because once if the money does flow, it's going to be an even shorter season for us to get those projects done, with November 15th being the final deadline for that. So we're really hoping to see some answers soon. Even if those answers are negative, at least we know that we can proceed with our own projects without impacting or jeopardizing what would otherwise be Rapid Response funded. And as Charlene had mentioned, it's interesting to see in some of those approved projects that Bell and TELUS, companies that post billions of dollars of revenue and earnings yearly, seem to be some of the first to be approved, and for some small amounts too, like $40,000 in some areas to expand service. So we remain optimistic, but hope to see some announcements soon on that. Otherwise, I think Jared could speak a little bit more about maybe if there are some other plans that we would have on the go in 2021 that we would do in place of Rapid Response. We hope that's not the outcome, but it's a possibility as well.
Thanks, Jeff. And thank you, Charlene, for all your organizing you've done to get this meeting together. Really appreciate it. As Jeff has mentioned, yeah, we are kind of at a bit of a standstill. We're unsure where to focus our energy at the moment. We have some projects that we had been planning to move forward with for 2021 in our area here, but of course, we were hoping for some announcements from UBF at this point. So we do have some projects planned, but sort of on the back burner, just kind of waiting to see what announcements come out soon, because that might change the whole scope of the build season. So I don't have many updates at the moment, but in the meantime, we've been updating a lot of our sites. We're pushing beyond many of the speeds that we've been currently offering. So we're excited to offer some higher speed packages for many of our existing customers and hoping to reach a few more. So primarily right now, we're focusing on improving connectivity for our current customer base and hoping to reach out to many more 2021. Thanks again, everyone. I think that's about all I can update you with for now. Mm-hmm. I'll pass the mic back to Charlene or whoever's next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Jared. There's a couple of comments in the chat from Lisa Clark. Lisa is the Chief Executive Officer with Clear Sky Connections. She's based in Winnipeg, and I'll just, she's having some tech difficulties and unable to join us through her video, but I'm just going to read off her comments, and that the problem is the province of Manitoba has asked ISED, so that's the federal government, to hold off on funding Manitoba projects until they finish their ISP process, their internet service provider process. And she said that Clear Sky Connections has put in requests to, and these would be federal departments, and also to other private investors that have come to them and want to proceed with partnerships and builds. Bill, can I ask you to comment on that? Bill Murdoch is with Clear Sky Connections. If you're on the line, Bill. Hello? Yes, hi. Yes. Hi.
Oh, okay, you can hear me.
Yes.
Sorry,
yes.
It is Lisa. Sorry, Bill. I know he's probably unmuting as I speak, but I just wanted to speak to that piece about the province giving notice to ISED that they're going through their ISP process. I mean, it's unfortunate that they they have that relationship with ISED to be able to, halt everything all the ISPs are waiting to proceed. I mean, regardless of what they've done, or I mean, what their decision making is, they have to recognize that the First Nations need to give them authorization to move through their territories anyway. And I mean, that's what the message we've taken to Ottawa. Indigenous Services Canada is doing the same, as well as Crown Relations, all those departments. So we're just in the midst of preparing a briefing to go back up to the federal ministers and to the Prime Minister's office. I mean, we've been doing a lot of lobbying over the past year as well, and just giving them updates on what communities we represent. And I mean, just that, you know, we stake our position, and we're staying there. The chiefs have given us notice that, you know, we continue in the direction that we have been, and that doesn't change. I don't know if Bill did share. We were supposed to take some items to our chiefs on June 1st, but we are changing our AGM to the end of August, and I just wanted to give that update before I have to log off again. I mean, Bill can speak further if he wants, but we are giving that notice to them that, you know, we've selected our partners. We know who we're proceeding with, and who the other First Nations decide to proceed with. I mean, that's their prerogative as well, but that is the position, and they need to recognize that, right? And just stop playing games as well. And enough of the top down decision making. We need to be consulted from the get go. I think they get that now, and I think they're a little bit weary of what they proceed with. So I mean, we'll take that message up. I mean, it would be good to have maybe a little blurb on this project to put in. I know we have the bigger application, but if there's something that you have that could kind of speak to that messaging as well, that, you know, that you recognize that the First Nations have that decision making authority, that would be good. So we can just put in, because we have a bunch of projects that we put in. If you could just give Bill something to send to us to put into the bigger briefing, that would be awesome. And we also have our summit on June 2nd and 3rd. Bill, if you could send that information to them as well, that would be great.
Mhm.
And thanks everybody. Thanks for listening.
Mhm. Thanks, Lisa. And we'll also touch on the summit prior to the conclusion of our meeting today. So great points raised on some of the politics relating to this sector and project funding. But we're really fortunate to have our MLA, Mr. Brad Mikuletsky, on the line. So I'll ask you, Brad, now to take some time to maybe offer some provincial perspective and an update from your end.
Thanks, Charlene. And I'm not sure, again, how much weight I can add to this other than being local MLA. I know, in terms of the provincial government, there has been from day one, a goal to grow the province, and connectivity is a big part of that. So, I think the government has been consistent and looking at ways to grow the economy. And of course, me as MLA looking at this broadband project for our region is really a really exciting new platform that you're heading up, Charlene, and it really does. Again, that's probably the correct word. It's just a new economic development platform. So, and I think that's something is definitely in line with what the government's thinking is and what the government's focus and priorities are right now to help grow all Manitoba and in a very inclusive way. So I think they've been very, very consistent on that front. Again, in terms of anything more, some of the issues that Lisa raised, that's not something that's in my purview, and but I know the government is working hard to with everybody trying to grow the province. So I guess I have nothing more to add in terms of an update, but rest assured, I know the government, this is an important project for Manitoba and also for the Parkland.
Brad, if I can ask you a question. Lisa has indicated, and again, I think she's disconnected from her phone, I'm not sure. She writes that the problem is that Manitoba has asked ISED to hold off on funding Manitoba projects until until they finish their ISP process. Now, what does that actually mean? I'm sorry, I don't live in the world where everything is letters. So can you translate what does this actually mean, and what kind of timelines are we looking at?
Sorry, I meant to say the RFP process. So they had their request for proposal process, and they're looking at the I believe it's 5 ISPs to manage the hydro telecom network. They're going through that, and they've given that message, and that was some time ago already. They had asked for 1 month extension. We thought that they were going to ask for another extension in March, but that wasn't the case. So, I mean, we're waiting to hear back from a couple of our the ones that are part of that process. We're waiting to hear back from them. They give us updates constantly from the provincial government on what they're hearing internally, but nothing has come out yet. They haven't made any big decisions yet, and that did halt the process for some time back in February and March with respect to rapid response. And we said, well, you know, like, nobody has the right to halt anything from a First Nations perspective. If we've already declared who we're partnering with and what projects we want to move forward with that are shovel ready, then those should be awarded. I mean, but again, they're talking to each other. It's a unilateral conversation they're having, but we don't know where that is in all fact, right? We're just hearing through our ISP partners that that's the case. And sorry, I meant to put RFP, not ISP.
I completely agree with Lisa. There's no reason that this RFP should hold up these projects because many of them aren't even contingent on the MHT fiber. Completely separate. MHT is not the only fiber backbone provider in the province. So it's really unfortunate that this is happening.
Great comments. And I guess we would ask our elected reps to continue to take these messages back because I think it's really critical that there be some developments on this front. And I know
Charlene,
that in last week's provincial budget, there was mention made that broadband projects would be forthcoming within Manitoba.
Charlene, Lisa, if you could include our office in any correspondence with the ministers or the departments at the federal level, that'd be appreciated as well. That way we can maybe go on different prongs of attack that way as well, so we can help you out that way. If that's possible, that'd be great. Thanks.
I understand that the AMM will have their district meetings in June, again virtually. So I'm sure this topic is going to be huge as far as local capacity building in that area. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So with that, I would like to move along and introduce Joel Templeman from Tech Manitoba. I'm sorry to back up. There is a chat from Kevin Edmondson. Is there anything that the municipalities and AMM in the Parkland can do to assist in moving this project forward, such as a joint letter to the provincial and federal ministers who are responsible? I'll ask our MLA and MP to perhaps respond to that, if that would be effective.
Sure. No, I think you know, as municipalities, there's regional districts, or there's the AMM as a whole. Again, I think municipalities have an effective advocacy group in, again, whether it's the district or the AMM. speak and in support of this towards government. That's a path that's there, and I would encourage you to use it.
As far as the holdup, I think it's kind of just learning the information here. What is it if there is holdup between the province and the feds? That's we'll handle it on the Fed side. I guess we got to identify who's actually standing in the way here. They're definitely playing games back and forth, though. Understanding the conversations, and that's not right. So we'll do what we can up in Ottawa, that's for sure. Try to move this forward, but the locally, community wise, and provincially wise, that's AMM could probably start, and the community and the projects could start pushing together to find out why the province is talking the way, or why are we hearing these rumors. I guess as far as what's the holdup, from my perspective, anyways.
Okay, and I know that Ron Kostishin, who couldn't join us this morning, he has reached out to Dan Van Dale's office as well, who has a significant Northern and Indigenous portfolio with the federal government. So I think the more advocates we can have supporting us and the Manitoba messaging, the better. So Lisa's comments on a joint letter being beneficial. I guess that's a great idea. We need to start crafting that as soon as possible and circulating it. So to continue those lobbying efforts. So in my follow-up email to everyone today, after today's meeting, hopefully we can continue momentum on that front, just to make sure that action is taken accordingly. Okay, now I'm going to introduce Joel. Sorry, Joel. Joel Templeman is the owner and CIO of leadthrough.ca, where he does consulting work for local small businesses and nonprofit organizations. He's also an education specialist with the Digital Literacy Project for Tech Manitoba. He is retired, although he looks very young, retired as a major with the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve, and has worked in training, development, and led a team of technicians at a national work operations center. Joel currently works with Tech Manitoba and coordinates many special professional development opportunities for teachers looking to incorporate more technology, computational thinking, and coding into the classroom. He's the current executive director of the Internet Society Manitoba chapter, supporting the expansion of open, accessible internet for everyone. He's also a former public school teacher, having spent much of his time in the special needs community. He has completed a Bachelor of Education in 2001 and went on to complete a master's degree in public administration through the Royal Military College of Canada in 2016, with a focus in IT project management, strategic decision-making, and organizational psychology. He excels at diving into complex situations and helping those involved in planning and executing processes that harness the chaos and focus effort into the achievement of stated goals. Business planning, short and long-term goal setting, resource management, and leadership training are all part of the services that he can help to bring organizations, communities, and workplace to help succeed. And we've had some great conversations with Joel in the past, so he's familiar with Parkland Dynamics and our proposal development towards the UBF in terms of this multi-community collaboration. So we're very pleased and grateful that Joel was able to share some information with us today.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Charlene. Yes, and thank you for all being here. Let me just share my short presentation. Okay, we can see that. Okay, well, first of all, I'm very pleased to see that this entire gathering is happening. This type of collaboration is critical. And anywhere that we see success in North America and around the world, it is this type of collective collaboration between business, local business political leaders, national, provincial, all speaking and all communicating to address those communication gaps that have already come up on this call, just to make sure that everybody is working towards the same goal, and that the inevitable information isn't missed and it's shared collectively. So when that type of conversation is happening and people are working collectively, there are good examples of success in these types of projects. And it's the opposite, the lack of coordination, that has traditionally kind of plagued Manitoba and brought less dollars to the province. We're a relatively small province, and we absolutely need to work together when we are all fishing in the same pond for dollars, and going up against other much larger and more resourced organizations and provinces. So this is exactly the type of thing that needs to be going on. So I'm happy to see that. I'm not going to talk about the research, the report itself too much. It'll be made available to you. If you don't already have the links to it, I'll work with Charlene to get that out to you. And any of the research that we have was designed specifically for this type of a thing, is to support projects like yours, and to further the discussion about connectivity and all of the surrounding issues. This started, Tech Manitoba, it has an ongoing project. It was a 3-year project that we just found out might be extended for a 4th year. It's a ISED funded digital literacy project. What we've been doing is working with communities to provide very, very basic introduction technical training to anyone who has connectivity issues, digital literacy skills, newcomers, low-income families, elderly, specifically. So working through like community centers and organizations to provide that type of training, paying for the development of the curriculum and the instructors and things like that. Also, and this is my particular role, is to work with school divisions across the province, and to provide professional development opportunities for teachers, to include more technology into their pedagogy, change the way that learning is done, and to focus on kind of 21st century skills. I'll touch on that later. So the point of this was, when we started trying to accomplish some of our tasks, we found that there was definitely missing information. There was very little current and accurate information about connectivity. There's been a lot more since COVID, obviously. But at the time when we started this, there was very little. It was outdated, and it was not necessarily Canadian, and definitely not Manitoban. So we were trying to start with a foundational document, which this is, a secondary scan of kind of what existed in Canada, North America, and the rest of the world for connectivity projects, and the implications on education ultimately. So this document was written by ICTC, their national research, national nonprofit with a specialty in research with technology. So they actually penned this report. And Tech Manitoba also is an industry-led association, nonprofit, promoting the tech industry in Manitoba to foster the culture and so that their members can thrive and grow in the tech industry. So it was a good partnership, and it was like I said, just a very kind of high level scan of what was available, what research was out there, so that we knew where the gaps were. We're still, this is still an ongoing effort. Phase 2, we're working with the Brandon University, both the Rural Development Institute and BU Cares, both research facilities. And they're doing kind of phase 2, which is a primary research study on school divisions and what is currently their policies and their practice and their access to technology. It's a bit of a snapshot across the province for school divisions and what's there. One of the things that will come out of that is a contrast and compare between urban centers and rural schools, and it will go into budgets and equipment and access and resources and things. So definitely drilling down into what is actually going on in kind of education at the technology level. The other thing that was mentioned, I'm also the executive director of the Internet Society Manitoba chapter. You probably haven't heard of it because it's only a few months old. The Internet Society is an advocate for open and accessible internet everywhere in the world. It's an international organization, and there is a Canada chapter and there is a Quebec chapter in formation, and they do great work. But there was a number of people in Manitoba through this process that were doing also great work and didn't really know each other. So there was enough people who agreed that there needed to be a Manitoba focused chapter to partner with projects like this and to bring more dollars through ISOC into the province and to just promote these issues. One of the good things about the organization is it's nonprofit and isn't tied to any technology or any particular flavor of internet. It's just trying to provide those things to everyone. When we're talking about this was focused on education, or at least the barriers to education, but it applies to economic development and it applies to basically everything that you're looking at. But education was our focus. Excuse me. And by education, I mean formal and informal, lifelong learning in the classroom and out of the classroom, K-12 post-secondary. It's that type of all-encompassing look that we were trying to get. So these are some of the things that we're very much focused on, and it goes well beyond just the connectivity issue. Like I said, this also isn't specified. It does not say that one technology is better than another technology. It does not advocate for fiber or low Earth orbit satellites or any of those technologies. It is focused on the end result, which is that having that connectivity in an affordable way that is usable. So that's the focus of the report. Was pretty broad. There's another study here, and we'll send this out. This is more recent, but it is complementary to this. It's also done by ICTC, and it's looking at 21st century digital skills, and it kind of shows in a little bit more concrete way why this is important and why the digital divide, as those who have and those who have not, are going to be more and more disadvantaged. And that research, there's lots of research to support the idea that the Matthew effect, right? The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So the same thing in access to services and access to resources. Those who do not have the connectivity or the digital skills to access it, as more services and more things go online, they'll be removed more and more from those things. It's not just a tech issue either, because the 21st century skills, every business has tech infused in it in some fashion. Online businesses, shopping, those types of things. These are all tech enabled, even if the business itself is not technical by nature. This was kind of the one overall statement that we highlighted from the report. And again, this is not talking just the classroom, but in general, access to learning for individuals. should be equitable regardless of where you live, and the internet connectivity supports that. But as the connectivity still doesn't exist, that gap is growing. So the skills that I'm talking about just in general too are the things that are universal and ubiquitous to business, to life in general, right? So communication skills, collaboration, being able to work across borders, right? Learning across borders, not having to leave your community to work or attend school. All of these types of things are correlated and wrapped up. So those are some of the drivers on why we wanted to highlight the issues, because the inequities kind of compound themselves as you get less and less connected. There's some statistics out of this, and this is actually an older slide. For better or worse, we've gone from second slowest broadband speeds to third lowest. So yes, there is some progress, but again, I don't want to look at this too much in detail, because there's an entire conversation about the validity of speeds and the reporting of speeds and what they actually say. But I did get it. There was actually a tweet this morning from the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, CIRA, which is a perfect example, a very great graphic of the digital divide. What I immediately saw in this thing is two things. One, obviously, there's a massive gap in speeds, which is fairly well known now. This is download speeds, median download speeds in the last year. But what I do notice is that in the red, in the urban, not only are they much higher, but from the beginning of the pandemic to the end of the pandemic, there has been increases. But if you look at the rural at the bottom, not only is it significantly lower, and in the speeds that are somewhat unusable, there's been almost no growth over the long term. So if you were to just take a line and keep going that way, even though the red one is jagged, it's still going up, but the rural one is not. So this is a great, I think, snapshot to show the issues and the trajectories. So, and then we talk about this a lot and we focus on it. The report kind of tries to get beyond the connectivity issue and look at the other things, because a couple of things, there's many more complexities than just the connection. And these things, projects need to be happening, they need to be happening simultaneously. So as well as, I know the topic today is connectivity and trying to adjust deployment of services. There's much more to think about, and it's something that at the political level, at the local and provincial and federal levels also need to be addressed in a coordinated fashion, right? So these discussions need to be broad. Because there is the chicken and the egg of deployment of services and adoption, right? So even though we may be able to connect a place tomorrow with a great big fire hose of internet connectivity, the people who live there have to have the equipment and the skills to adopt it, and the desire and the culture and the trust and all those things. So there's a number of different things for people to actually be able to utilize and benefit from them. And those skills aren't built overnight. They need to be built over time. So there is that's something that requires simultaneous work. There's also affordability, which is another whole topic. The connectivity does have to exist, but it has to be at a rate that is affordable to the users, to everyone. So there needs to be processes and supports in place for people who don't have that kind of access and are able to afford it. People shouldn't be making the choice between food and internet connectivity, and that is a real thing. And the digital literacy skills as well. So that's a whole gamut of things, but not just the ability to turn on the computer and plug it in and get access to a web page, but security and phishing attacks and all those types of things that go with operating safely in a digital environment, banking and those types of things. All of those things are needed, and that takes experience and that takes a cultural shift. So in places that don't have it, those things need to be slowly fostered and developed as well, simultaneously. If not, the connectivity is going to someday be available and explode and be able to be used, but then users might be at higher risk because they haven't had the time to learn some of those skills. In Manitoba specifically, and we don't go into this in the report, but we know that we are definitely behind. We're even more behind because of some of the things that Lisa and the other ISPs have talked about. There was money allocated. There were projects, ready to go, and they're all on an indefinite hold. Because of paired with the fact that the province is looking at having an ISP, one of the large telecoms, take over management of the Manitoba Hydro telecom backbone, dark fiber. Those are interrelated and they're problematic. And it's definitely things that we need to be informed about. Groups like this need to learn more about, understand the implications, and then work collectively together to address, obviously. So Manitoba has some very specific problems that don't exist in other places, and we are definitely behind. So there is no better time to be doing this. We need to make large leaping bounds to catch up, and that goes just for the health in general of the entire province. Though this report is focused, like I said, on education, it goes hand in hand with economic development, keeping residents local, right? Being able to stay at home and attend post-secondary education, especially now since COVID has pushed the vast majority of universities to adopt online capabilities. With connectivity and with digital skills, this is a reality. You can stay home, work in the local community, spend your money in the local community, and still get your degree. Those are things that not only benefit the person, but benefit the community. So there is great emphasis to do this and reasons to do this, and support it as well from an economic point of view. And being careful of the tech. There is a caveat about the technologies. When it comes to who is providing the technologies, there is an economic issue, which is where is that money going? So if we are using low Earth orbit satellites because that's all we have options to, that is Elon Musk's that we're giving our dollars to. So that money is not just leaving the community, it's leaving the province, it's leaving the country. So, there are some economic issues that need to be known and thought of when we are weighing and comparing different options. Not to say it's a bad option, it is part of the mix. But we should be informed when we're making decisions, especially at the political level, when we're making decisions, what the implications of the technology are. And so there are organizations out there, and I think this is back to what I said originally. This level of people coming together and having this conversation is absolutely critical, and I applaud you for doing it, and do more. Continue to do this and continue to work together for this, because everyone has the same end goal in this, is getting people connected for probably lots of different reasons, but ultimately we share a common goal, which is the first key to any successful project. And we all bring our own strengths to the table, and working collectively to do that is your recipe for success. So Tech Manitoba is available to support. This falls in line with it, because the more technology and the more companies we have, that is Tech Manitoba's goal, is to support that tech industry. The Internet Society Manitoba chapter, which I said is still firing up, is definitely in support of these types of community projects. And there are lots of other places. So it's really about getting connected with all the right people. And I think you're definitely already on the road for success with this.
Thanks so much, Joel. Just really excellent information that you've shared out. I know that being in rural communities within our region, we all have a very common shared experience around some of the limitations of connectivity, but it's just so gratifying to know that there's some excellent data and current research that's being done in the field, and the blend of community, education, business sector, I think is so critical. So you've just hit so many areas as far as the content. I see there's a couple of comments in the chat. Just much of them, thank you. Thank yous to you for sharing out this information. And I encourage everyone to check out the Tech Manitoba website, because there's a lot of detailed information relating to current and previous initiatives that they have undertaken within the province. And Mr. Mazur's comments around the need to show broad community support as being essential to get government to pay attention. And as far as Liberal MPs in Manitoba, Dan Van Dale, Jim Carr, Terry Dogood, which know the area. So thank you for that specific reference to those folks that we can be advocating towards. And again, copying Dan. So great comment. Jarrett's comments, in agreement, local dollars are already leaving the province or country to Starlink, or platforms like this do not offer local tech support or economic development. So that's bang on. Thomas's comment from Russell, Dan and Brad, did you realize that Manitoba is the second to last, just ahead of the Yukon? Okay. Okay. So not a great stat for us, unfortunately. And I just want to jump back to Jeff's earlier comment that Manitoba Hydro Telecom has been instrumental in assisting rural communities in broadband delivery over the past 15 years. The current request for proposals process and associated moratorium during the pandemic has had an equally reciprocal negative effect on the survival of rural communities. Allowing this RFP process to further stall broadband expansion in Manitoba as we enter the build season could put Manitoba another year behind other provinces. Excellent point, Jeff. I think it's just really critical that our local communities continue to advocate forward. And Joel's information today is so integral to building that understanding of the many layers of the need for partnership in this area. And we know, and I think we've acknowledged over the last few months, the necessity of connectivity. It's become as essential as hydro and water and other essential services that are provided to communities.
If I could just quickly add as well, I believe that with the graph that Joel had posted there, why we see such a big divide in the rural and urban connectivity is the medium that they're delivering it on. In the cities, practically everyone is connected with either high-speed coax or fiber optic cable, which makes it easy for ISPs to just simply increase the speed. So I think that's why we see such a steep climb in how much bandwidth they've been offering. But for us folks in the rural area, we're often left to deliver our internet services on fixed wireless. And it's only a finite amount of bandwidth that we can deliver on that. And it's regional. Like we have such a small slice to deal with. And as more and more bandwidth requirements, as more and more people request more bandwidth, we're left with less and less to deliver. So as Jeff and I have both said before, fiber optic is the last frontier for delivering this connectivity. And if we can get fiber optic cables connected to everyone that we're planning to in this project, we will see a similar graph for growth in our internet connectivity over the next few years. So that's my belief. And thank you to Joel for posting that information. And thanks again from RioNet.
Mm-hmm. Great. I don't, there's a couple of links in the chat that, that folks can check out. I would like to pass the mic over to Bill Murdoch with Clear Sky Connection to speak to an upcoming event. It's a virtual event, so we can all attend. And it's just some great upcoming information relating to building capacity from an Indigenous perspective.
Thank you, Charlene. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I put the link in the web or in the chat. So we're having a conference June 2, 3. The information's on our website. Also, there is a draft agenda and a list of confirmed speakers. The agenda is obviously not final, and a list of speakers, as we get confirmations, we'll be updating the site. That's about it for that. As for the information Joel was talking about, there was the Connect In project a couple of years back, testing the gaps in First Nation internet or in First Nation communities. I just put a link in the chat. This information is about 2 years old. It was done with a grant through CIRA in partnership with the FNTC, MFNERC, TSAG, Cyberra, and the University of Alberta. And the findings of the project, the information was gathered over a 2-year period. So having that historical record, just this graph alone, the dots are the 10 megs connectivity, and as you can see, the average throughout the time slot, it varied based on the time of the day and the community it was connecting to. And the link is in the chat if you have any more questions. I guess more directed at Joel. I have about 160 gigs worth of data from this project. I still have all the raw data. So if you think that would be a benefit to you, just reach out to me and we'll arrange to get you a copy.
Absolutely. Yep, for sure.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And yes, I will send out the links to all of the references that have been made by Bill, by Joel. Okay, so we're at the 11 o'clock mark. I know we had allotted an hour and a quarter for today's meeting. I don't see any other final comments in the chat, but I'll just open up the floor in case anyone wants to pose a question or comment.
I just wanted to add about the low Earth orbit satellite. It's good to see that Joel had made mention of the economic effects of some of these projects in that report. You don't see that very often. It's always focused on delivering internet in any way possible. And specifically to the Starlink reference, I mean, he didn't make reference of that, but I'm making reference of the Starlink. But, you know, the government has provided Starlink what's called a BITS license, which is really an experimental license for them to offer services and transmit internet services across international borders. So they're taking that license and they're offering this service as an ISP would. And, you know, I would question the government as to why they're allowing that. I think there's a need for it. Obviously, people do need more bandwidth, but they're allowing people to basically subscribe to a service that's not really licensed in Canada. And I think a lot of people don't know that. I think a lot of people don't know that that service could be modified or changed or taken away at any time as these other technologies come about. So I think it's important to reference the economic effects of that and support projects that support local economies more so than international companies that are coming in and taking that revenue out of these local areas.
I was on a panel a few weeks ago, specifically focusing on low Earth orbit in Alberta, Rural Connectivity Forum in Alberta. I can provide a link to that recording as well. We get into some detail about those issues. And one of the other panelists was one of the people from Telsat, the Canadian option. The difference being that Telsat has they don't go direct to customer, they go to a third party. So that supports local economies where there are third parties to work with. And it allows for development of ISPs in places that may not exist right now. As things go, more competition, more business opportunities. That's something I didn't get into, but as people do adopt more technology, there's going to be more equipment that breaks and more equipment that needs to be fixed. And right now people are traveling a long way to get that done. But as things increase, then there's going to be more of a business case to develop things more locally, and then those people will have to be trained locally. And this is what implicates schools and what their curriculum is. It's all linked together in a I'm sure there's a Venn diagram somewhere that explains it all, but that education component is critical as we develop workforce that goes into it with more capability. All these things just need to be, people do need to, especially decision makers, need to take some time to educate themselves, and more than one opinion needs to be sought. There are lots of solutions out there, but there's more than one way to skin the cat, right? So I think that, and more importantly too, it has to be done locally, because what works in one region won't work in another region necessarily. So it needs to be based on what's available, and maybe you have interim solutions that build to it. Like I have personal opinions about fiber being the solution, which is I personally believe, but that's me. But at the same time, what are the interim solutions that will build some capacity, support some adoption, foster some of that digital literacy skills that need to be done, improve the user base, so that when that fiber finally rolls into the town and supplants the other technologies, we don't suddenly have that huge learning curve too, right? So everyone's playing their part in this. I mean, obviously the ISPs, you guys are working, as hard as you can to get this stuff in the ground and to people. But like I said, this is a collective effort that has to address all of these issues, and no one group is addressing them all. So we just need to support each other so that the end user is able to safely and equitably access these resources and services.
It's Bill Murdoch. I agree with what Joel says, that it's a stopgap. Satellite and wireless is a stopgap until the fiber gets to the community. As for the LEO that's currently available, the Starlink, currently they don't provide service above the 50-second parallel. And many of the First Nation communities, the ones in the highest need, are actually above the 50-second parallel. So Telesat's not even an option, or I'm sorry, Starlink's not an option. With Telesat, they're advertising a terabit network, but that's globally. For Manitoba, it's only 12 gigs. And that would provide some level of service to a handful. Well, if 12 gigs, say a gig per community, that's 12 communities. There's 63 First Nation communities. That doesn't even include all the other rural and Aboriginal and all the other, Métis communities. That's just the First Nations. And many of those, they currently do not have adequate connectivity. So you pick 12, and which 12 are going to get the connection? And that's a stopgap. And based on the bandwidth projections that I have, that would be a stopgap that would be adequate until 2026. So we have until 2026 to get fiber to these communities. And we're not even in the 5G world yet. We're not in the IoT world. We expect that to be mass rollout by 2030. And currently with 4G cell service, you have to have fiber to the tower to support 4G. Well, with 5G, you definitely have to have fiber to the tower to support 5G networks. And you need more towers to provide the coverage because of the limited range that 5G works. So fiber is a necessity. Everything else is just a stopgap until we get the fiber.
One more thing that Bill made me think of too is there's also a lot of things that can be done in preparation for fiber, any of these technologies coming into town, and municipalities, local leaders can start working on that, because some of these things take a long time. So looking at bylaws, looking at building codes, looking at updating, making sure that you're working with ISPs and construction companies and whatever, one dig policies, you're putting, there's lots of different solutions out there, but there are things that local communities can do to plan collectively when you're redoing roads. Are you putting empty conduit in? There's lots of things, and I don't have an answer to any of that, but those things take time to change policies and to change bylaws and things like that. But ask yourself, is your community, is your area have things that hinder that progress? So, when the money comes and when the trucks show up, is it going to be as easy as possible at every level for everyone to do their job? So when you're thinking about the technical side, building codes, fiber to the home, if you're going, pick the route that you're going, or if you're going all the routes, what are the things that are going to slow people down or stop those things? And look at those and start working on changing them, soften the beaches, smooth the road ahead of time, so that those things are in place. That will make the deployment part significantly easier for everyone and cheaper for everyone too.
Excellent comments from you all. Thank you. And thank you, Bill, for that perspective in terms of timing. When we think of this within a 5-year sort of time frame, that means there's a whole lot of work ahead for our rural communities to get ourselves well positioned for our current situation and future, if we are to remain viable moving forward.
Charlene?
Yes.
I again want to particularly thank the presenters and thank them for their frankness in answering questions, and again for the political leaders that are participating too. I've throughout this whole project, I've been on a quick learning curve. This is not in my wheelhouse normally. And I think Charlene and I have talked about that a few times together, that we've kind of had to rapidly learn things as we were trying to figure out how to communicate this information into our communities and get the best information into the hands of decision makers. And at the municipal level, the decision makers, there's a great deal of confusion. And I would say that what Joel has presented and the additional information from other presenters has helped a lot. One of the questions that I've heard some references to, but we haven't addressed, and I'm hoping there might be the brain trust to speak to this, the black wire that Manitoba Hydro has, is it going to become available as we're moving forward, or how is that being envisioned in taking advantage of that asset that exists? Because it sounds like it could be a real assistance to moving communities forward if there was some clarity around that.
If I could jump in quick, is there even any dark fiber available? My understanding was that the whole hydro loop was already lit up, but there were strands on it that might be available for other providers, but maybe Jeff can add to that.
Yeah, it's hard to know what Manitoba Hydro is going to do there. I mean, they like I said earlier, they're connecting a lot of communities now, so it's nothing new if they, allow other ISPs or other communities to connect to it. You know, it's really the holdup at this stage that I think is the biggest problem for these projects getting awarded in Manitoba, from what I've heard and from what I suspect and what I know.
It's Bill. From my perspective, the province submitted the RFQ, request for qualifications, last year. Based on the RFQ, they shortlisted vendors to invite for the RFP process, request for proposal. So it was a closed RFP, wasn't made public to only those providers. Based on that, 5 providers were shortlisted. And my understanding is the province is dividing, well, they're dividing the province into 9 sections based on the Manitoba Hydro Telecom fiber path. So currently the Hydro Telecom is accessible. Well, before the process, it was accessible to ISPs, either dark fiber, which is a premium product, or dark waves. You have the fiber strands, but you could shoot multiple lights over the single fiber strand to make the fiber appear like it's additional strands. So ideally, it would be access to the dark waves is what you need. That's what it's called. That was accessible, but because of the provincial process, they shut down everything. There's no new projects. Existing projects were put on hold. They're not even doing any engineering work or negotiations or right away. There's nothing. Everything is just stopped with Manitoba Hydro Telecom. And once the process is complete, it's a question as to how it's going to look. In my mind, they're looking to privatize a public asset, Manitoba Hydro Telecom's fiber network, to these 5 ISPs.
I did drop a link into the chat. This isn't mine, and it's not my organization, but I have heard that this has been helpful. I've shared it with a few people in local municipalities that I've just had one-on-one conversations with. It's intended to be kind of a toolkit. It's a couple of years old, a toolkit for municipalities to look at the types of things under their control, different strategies. It is American, and obviously they have a different political structure, which does impact the way that ISPs operate in the US compared to Canada. But I just offered as maybe there's some things in there that you might be able to take away.
Great. Thank you. And Dan's comments, just that there are 38 RMs in the riding with 14 First Nation communities. And when meeting with them, he has asked them if they have a connectivity plan. Some have said yes. Some think not. It is not their responsibility. People from the communities will have to push together to get this service. Great, great comment. Mr. Mikulецki, do we want to put you back on the hot seat to respond to some of this provincial, the provincial piece with Manitoba Hydro?
Yeah, sure. And I'll just say I'm not going to weigh into that one at all. And I know there was, quite a few months back, there was a RFP for that dark fiber. And again, I haven't heard anything on my end. And it's, I want to go back and focus on the intent of this project that you're running, Charlene, and the regional approach towards this broadband project. And it's really important that we stay focused on that. And it's very, very important for our region. And as MLA, I can say that quite solidly, I guess. There's a lot of stakeholders in our region, and this is an important platform. And I know, and again, I'll say consistently, our government has been this is an important issue in terms of connectivity for the whole province, and really it is a instrument for social and economic development and growth. We've been very consistent on that. So again, so when I come back to this project, Charlene, that you're pushing, as a local MLA, I see it as an important vehicle to create an important platform that I think we need to make sure we remain focused on that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks. This isn't a specific connectivity issue to internet, but I would like to just call on Assistant Superintendent with Mountain View School Division's Stephen Jadek for some comments relating to the recent announcement of the on the Baldy Mountain Tower and the
Yes,
impacts.
thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Charlene. We were just curious about the Baldy Mountain Tower and its availability for our use for our transportation radios. It works well for our large geographic area, and it allows all of the buses and the division office to have communication with them. But we're wondering if that is still available to school divisions and to other individuals who make use of that tower, or is it going to be totally reserved for some other perhaps internet service providers exclusively? And that was one of our questions.
I'll just respond. I'm aware of it, of the concerns by Mountain View School Division and the range of communications off that tower. I have made a number of departments aware of this concern, and it's when we come to something like this in terms of communications for education and safety, I think we have to make sure that remains a high priority in any sort of communication strategy for the parkland.
Thank you very much. That's greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you. It's just an important issue to keep our keep the radar on as it relates to that need for telecommunication. Jared just had a comment relating to RioNet has a tower on the side of the Duck Mountains that Mountain View School Division would be able to co-locate their radio repeater on. And just for those who may not be aware, this was a Bell MTS or Bell Media decision around relocation or dismantling. So I think this is an important parkland related issue to be aware of. Joel again has shared out some really valuable links. And Jared has reached out to the CBC. They are not aware of this tower being decommissioned. Jared, did you want to have any, make some final statements or comments just around that? Because it has been a local landmark within our region for forever.
Right. It's the tallest structure in Manitoba, on the tallest location in Manitoba. It was primarily used for analog broadcast of CBC and CTV television, channel 8 and 12. And also CBC Radio Dauphin is broadcast off that same structure. And as you know, the Mountain View School Division had their radio repeater, and I believe RCMP has a radio repeater on there as well. Jeff and I had this conversation before. We had heard from Mountain View School Division that the word was the tower was coming down and they had to remove their radio repeater. Also, Prairie Mobile has some space on that tower, and they were told the same thing. So I reached out to CBC after not getting a response from Bell Media, and the technical staff at CBC was not aware of this at all. So in an email back to me, they said they're basically just going on the presumption that it's not coming down. So I'm getting mixed signals here. I don't know what is actually going to be happening with it. We've been trying to co-locate at that site for many years to bring our broadband service into Blue Lakes, Sangush Lake, Childs Lake, who for the last, forever has not had any high-speed internet service. But we've had no luck getting on that site. But as I mentioned in the comments, RioNet has one of our internet towers not far from Baldy Mountain, just located in Grandview Municipality, that may be a good co-location option for Mountain View School Division if they indeed have to look for other options. And that goes for any municipality or organization that's looking for radio repeater space. We practically have the second highest location for a transmitter in Manitoba. So if anyone wants more info, my email is in the chat there. You can just reach out to me directly.
Okay, folks, I'm going to wrap us up. So we'll be looking for just a follow-up email with all of the information shared out today. I just thank you all for taking time to connect. I think we've really been enlightened this morning on some of the the huge issues that our communities are facing in the region, and we're just waiting, excitedly anticipating the UBF announcements for Manitoba. So we'll certainly keep everyone posted to that good information when it comes. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thanks. See you later.
Thank you. Take care.
Oh.